And again, welcome to the Sage 100 Usability Webinar. My name's Carol Sukup, and today what we're going to talk about is some of the customization tools within Sage 100 that you can use to make Sage 100 your own. These tools are fully upgradable. It is not custom programming. It's merely using the tools within the system. I am impressed by the caliber of today's attendees, and I'm hoping that everybody can get something out of today's broadcast. What we're going to do is we're going to start easy and get more complicated as we go. Most of you know the advanced lookup engine. However, we have found that typically most clients, when we go through all the features of it, find something very useful and exciting that they can use there to make life easier. Then we're going to move on to the memos. Some of our clients are using memos, and they're very, very easy to use and have a lot of applications. And then we're going to go to Custom Office and add user-defined fields, customize them to the screen, and add additional information that's in the system to your screens. You do have to be careful with Custom Office, and a lot of our clients are not currently using it, but feel free to contact a consultant. Sometimes just the ideas that you learned today gives you ideas of how you can make your life easier, and we can help you implement these things. So first of all, we'll begin with the Advanced Lookup Engine. We sometimes call it AL. And I know that got a lot of people's attentions with the invitation. And that is simply this magnifying glass that you see on a lot of fields within Sage 100. Before we go into that, though, there's a couple of new search features that have been introduced in version 2017 for Sage 100C. So I'll just take a moment to go through a couple of those. They were recorded in the January webinar as well. So for example, they have a universal search. So as you know, if you start typing the customer name, a number of customers come up and the name and the list gets shorter and shorter. However, with the new universal search, you're probably wondering why American Business Futures is showing up in my search. But if I select this customer, we're going to go past the customer memo, and if we go into the additional field, this is the comment field is one of the fields that is searched in the universal lookup. So I have the app for the credit approval, and that's why ABF showed up. Similarly, if you look at the phone number, even though it's formatted with parentheses and spaces, the phone number is another field that is on the universal lookup. So if we start typing the phone number, then the phone number does come up for ABF, even though I have not typed any parentheses or spaces or any formatting into that phone number. So it does know to hide those, to ignore those fields also, those characters. And the customer number also, the universal lookup also includes wildcards. So for example, if I typed A and put in a star for the wildcard and then NC, you can see that Allen's appliance repair comes up because there's an A, some other characters, and then an N and a C. So they have built in some more powerful search features in the search without the advanced lookup engine as well. So most of you know, moving on to the advanced lookup engine, that if you start typing the customer ID and hit F2, then it will give you a short list of your customers. And that's very wonderful and nice. You can customize this now. So if we click Find, we can get the full list. And we can sort by the different columns in the lookup. So if we want to sort by zip code, it gives the zip codes in order, or the sort fields. Simply by clicking at the top of the column, it rearranges the items in the proper order. And so then when we have a customer, we can also do searches. So any of the fields that are in the lookup are available for search. You'll notice the full text is also one of those options, and if you'd like additional information about that for 100C in version 2017, we can give you all the fields that it searches automatically with full text. But maybe we want to look at the customer name, and then there's lots of options here. So perhaps we pick contains and company. So now we'll get a short list of those customer names that contain CO in it. Now we can multi-filter items as well. So if you click this additional filters button, that gives you the ability to add additional filters. In this case, since I pre-filtered it, it's going to add on to what I already had, or you can start with your multiple filters here. So maybe we want to add to that short list that the zip code begins with a 5, and it will reduce the list even further for us. Now I can just cancel out of that and start over. We can also modify this lookup. And the lookup modification started out as one of those things to give people the extra tool to find what they're looking for, and really turned into a reporting tool. And I'll give you an example of that by going through. We're looking at our customers, so maybe we'll go through and do a special lookup for collections. So we're going to create a new view, and we're going to call it collections. I'm going to make it the default view, and that way when I finish going through this, it'll default. The standard view is always available. You can't get rid of it, so don't worry about that. The default view is the view that you want to default when you are looking something up. And you can create this just for yourself, or you can create these and roll them out to other people as well. So we have the default view. Now the columns on the left are all the columns that are available for lookup. The columns on the right are the columns that are already selected. And you can see those are the columns from my original view. So if I don't care about some of these columns, I can remove them. So for example, zip code we'll take out, and sort field we don't really use, so we're going to remove that as well. However, we do want the contact code because we're looking for collections, and maybe the terms code in case we need to make some modifications to terms codes if somebody is getting behind on something. We'll beat up the salesperson if their customers are behind, and maybe we only do some statements for people who require collections. So we can also take a look at the statement cycle and adding that in. So there's a lot of fields that can be added, specifically in terms of collections as well. Maybe credit hold is something you want to look at. Are they on credit hold if we're looking for those people who are outdated? Now the aging categories are defined by each one of our customers. So they might be 30, 60, 90, or 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. In this case, we have 30, 60, 90, and I only care about, and 120. I only care about my 90 and my 120. And then we can continue adding additional columns as we go. It will even include fields. In this case, the UDF source is a user-defined field that I created. So those fields are automatically added to the record and can be searched on in the advanced lookup engine. So if you need additional information, that can be added. Notice how once I add a field to my selected columns, they no longer are on the available columns. One of the cool things about this advanced lookup engine is that it's already linked to other related fields as well. And that becomes very powerful in terms of making this a reporting tool too. So I had pulled over the customer contact code before, but I'd really like to have the customer contact name. So I'm going to pull that over, and we'll get rid of the contact code and move it back. So you can constantly be moving back and forth. And it's just putting things down at the bottom here. And similarly, maybe we want the salesperson name as well. So once we have these fields, the aging category 90 and 120, I'd really like to combine those in terms of looking things up. So we're going to create a new field, and we're going to call it, this is the old stuff, and we'll give it a width of 12. This is going to be a calculated field. So what we do is we go to the aging category 3 and we add aging category 4, and we have our new field. Now it added the old field down at the bottom, but we're going to move it up because that's going to be very important for us in figuring out who it is that we need to call. And I'm going to move that down a little bit, maybe past the status. Okay, but the status I don't really need at the top either, so I'm going to move that down. I only want to keep the status because I'm going to filter by status. So now that we have the ability to mark customers as being inactive, I'd really like to have a status that is not equal to inactive so that I don't, when I'm looking at my customers, I don't need to see those in the list. Okay, so we'll move forward then. And the last screen tells us how what we want to title this and how do we want to search. What should be our default search? So what we're going to do, since this is collections, is we're going to take a look at that old field. It's not in the order that we'll see it in the lookup. It's just in this order. And we're going to have that be greater than, because I want to filter on things that are old and greater than. So we'll finish that off. And because I made my collections my default view, it's showing up here. I added a lot of fields so we can make this really wide to show all the different fields that we're looking up on. And you'll notice that the standard view is still available, but we're looking at collections. And we can search by any of these fields that we just added. But the default is old is greater than, and we want to see anything that's greater than $500. And so it gives us that short list of customers who owe us more than $500. Now this is great because it gives us the information. If we need to put all these people on credit hold, we're already in the lookup. We can simply grab that customer and start editing them. We can print this list off by clicking the print button here in the lower right-hand corner, or right next to it is the Excel button. And so clicking Excel, this has really turned into a lot of our customers' go-to report writer. You'll see that it popped up Excel in the background. It has the columns in the order that I placed them. We had moved old up and everything else is in the order that we added it, as well as filtering it for what I need. So now I have my phone number, I have my customer contact that I need to call, and I have information on how much they owe. Meanwhile, I still have my lookup available. I'm going to just close out of this spreadsheet so that as I'm talking to them, I can grab their customer information and start talking to them right away too, and talk about the old invoices that are available. So this has really become a quick and dirty go-to way for people to do the report writing. So if you want a list of customers, inventory items, just go to the advanced lookup engine. You don't even have to do any filtering. Click Excel and you can pop it out to Excel very easily. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to pick up one of these customers, and we've started to make phone calls, and we want to start making some collection notes. We have not yet implemented CRM, so we're going to use the memos within Sage to do a poor man's CRM here, if you will. So on lots of different records, this is customers. They're also on orders, purchase orders, invoices. You'll see this little memo, inventory items. This little memo pops up all the time, and you can add memos to the different records. So what we're going to do is open up that memo, and you put in a code, and the codes can be very helpful for terms of reporting. So I have various customers that have collection codes, and I'm going to be writing a report out or printing a report out later with all my collection notes. And so using that memo code gives me the ability to group those together. And I'm going to apologize in advance with my typing. It's terrible when I'm trying to talk at the same time. So we made this phone call to the customer yesterday. I'm putting in the notes today. And I left a voicemail and an email, and maybe there's some very important information in email, or perhaps it's a PDF or something else that we would like to attach. So this simply allows me to go out to my file folder and grab the file, and it puts the path to that file so that I can open that file up at any time. Sorry, it opened up on the other screen, and I can take a look at that. In this case, I attached an email so that we have that email available on the customer. We can also use memo codes. So we've used it for attachments to keep notes, and we can keep a running list of the collection notes here. We can also display information. Now, this memo started today, and maybe you have an expiration date on it. Or you want to have pop-up reminders. So maybe you have a start date and an end date for reminders that only happen during a certain time period. In this case, I want to leave it always reminding until we turn it off. So I'm going to have my display. I can have it never display, always display, or only during that reminder date period. I'm going to have it always display. And we can go into the settings then and tell it where it should display. It's going to save that memo. There's a few defaults that you set up in your setup on where you want things to default to display. I don't necessarily want this at customer inquiry, but I'd really like to have it at sales order inquiry, quick order entry, or let's see, the sales order invoice data entry. So and accounts receivable invoice data entry, just in case. So at those times when people are starting to enter an order, I want to pop it up and I want to tell those people a message. In fact, I'm going to add my message here, and I'm going to maybe put it in bold. You have to be careful about the pop-ups because too many of them and people will ignore. And I'll say, ask about the check they said that was in the mail. The old check in the mail. So if they place an order in a little while, the order entry person can ask them about that while they have the person on the phone. All right, so just to summarize memos before we move on, you can use this for a variety of things. You can use it to attach attachments to any of the records that have memos. We can use it for reporting purposes to group like things together using a memo code. We can use it for a variety of notes if you have lengthy notes on your customer. And we can use it for popping up reminders in certain places where it would be logical within the system. Okay, so now what we're going to do then is take a look at that customer pop-up. So now if we go into sales order entry, then we can we'll create a new order, and let's pull up that customer that we had. It was O2 Custom Craft. And here's that reminder that we just put in to ask the customer about the check that was in the mail. Now, the next thing that we can do is create user-defined fields and add them to the screens. So what we're going to do then is cancel out of here and go into the custom office and user-defined field and table maintenance area. And I created a short list for today. If you would like any information on how to find these areas within Sage, please just contact us and we will provide those instructions as well. Okay, so now that we're moving on to user-defined fields, what you want to do is find the folder where you want to put your user-defined field. And there is lots and lots of documentation available. If you'd like additional information about the file structures, just see us and we can help you with that. You can also see that I have a couple of user-defined fields already from current things that I've created. But today what we're going to do is we're going to go into the customer maintenance, so it's under accounts receivable and AR customer maintenance, and we're going to add a field to the customer maintenance record. We would like to, and so it's the customer master, and what we would like to do is we'd like to put the customer's shipping code so that when we ship packages, we can use their biller ID for UPS. So the little buttons here on the right all have pop-ups available. We could look at the tables that are out there and search for what we're looking for. This is edit fields, which is what I'm going to do because I want to add fields. We can do some advanced field settings, or we can do some user-defined scripts. I'm not going to talk about scripts today because that gets into some programming, but it does know that it's available in case you need to do calculations and those types of things. These other fields are not bolded right now because I have a table selected, and we're going to talk more about user-defined tables later. So we'll go in and we'll edit the field. You can see I already have a field out there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a field for the ship account. I can't type. And so I created my field name. It adds UDF to the front of it and gives me a little description. I can make it a little bit bigger if I want to and edit that. The initial one on the customer maintenance is going to be a manual entry. I'm going to show you how to flow that over to the sales order entry next, but what we're not going to show is flowing to the invoice and the invoice history. We can help you with that if you'd like additional help with that as well, but that would be one of the things you do. So we're going to start with a manual entry. And so the user-defined screen comes up, and you can see that my description is still in there wrong. There's several options. I'm just going to have a multi-line that's just a field. If you want to have a drop box or a list box with values that are available to choose from, you can choose that, or a checkbox. That would be, do you have it or do you not? A yes/no checkbox. Now, this particular field is going to be a string because I'm going to have characters and numbers in it. Otherwise, you could choose numeric or a date field too. This string, we're going to make it only 6 characters because that's all that is needed for this particular purpose. We could have a mask if we wanted to hover over it and to say something like enter the customer ship account. My typing is terrible. You can set a default value for your user-defined fields and then also have a caption too. So then on the validation, oops, my string mask. Oops. Okay, so I don't want a mask. Never mind. I was thinking of the caption to enter the ship account. On the mask, that is used for formatting purposes. So for example, if you want a mask on a phone number and you want parentheses and spaces. On the validation, we're going to talk about validation a little bit later too, but you can set a range of values that are valid for validation. You can set a list of valid items for validation, or you can choose a user-defined table. I have one user-defined table out there, so it's kind of grayed out, and you can choose whether to make this a required field or not. The data sources are simply for the business objects in flowing fields from one area to another, and you can see some of the tables that we can flow via. So we've created our shipping account, and so now when I click OK, it's going to update the tables. And this is the point where when you're creating a user-defined field, everyone needs to be out of Sage so that it can update the tables. It will wait until everybody closes out before it'll complete the update too. So that is something to plan for if you're going to create user-defined fields yourself, to make sure that everybody is out of Sage at the time. Okay, so then the other thing that I would like to do then is I'd like to flow that field over to my sales order entry table so that when we create an order, that customer ID defaults on the order. So you can see that I have sales order entry here as one of my recent tables. I also can go to sales order entry and create it here too. So if we go into sales order and the sales order entry, you can find it here, but I'll just save you that. We're going to put on the sales order header. Now it gave me a message that says it's unable to access all or certain data sources. In this case, it's referencing the barcode, and I don't have the barcode module activated for this company, and that's okay. I don't want the barcode activated. So if you get a message like that and it's referencing a module that you don't have activated, don't worry about it. Okay? So now what we're going to do then is add that ship account to the sales order header field, and that way we can flow it over. So we don't want to re-enter it in sales order. We want it to flow from the customer maintenance table. So it gives us the list of the business objects. In this case, it's going to be the sales order bus, and the data source that it's coming from. This is the link of the customer number, and so it's the customer number that is bringing that field over. And then if you look at the columns, at the very bottom, you can see those user-defined fields that are available via the customer number through the sales order. So here's our ship account user-defined field. So once we say OK to that, then it does create this user-defined field with the same defaults as the field that we're flowing from. So you can see that it defaulted it to string and multi-line with a length of 6, and I can't change that because that's the definition of the field that it's coming from. And we still have the caption, the validation. At this time, you can see on the data sources that it pre-selected the information that we selected in telling it to flow this information over for us. And again, if you'd like assistance with how to flow things, please let us know, and our consultants can help you with that. And from here, this would be in the sales order header, we would want to flow it to the invoice and to invoice history. And we just don't have time to show all that today, but just wanted to make a note that those would be the next steps. Okay, so we've created a user-defined field that we manually enter, and the other user-defined field that we flow the information into. And again, it's updating all the tables in the data dictionaries. It's adding it right to the tables and the fields so that it's predefined for filtering. It's there for your crystal reports. It's available on your advanced lookup engine. It adds it to all of the standard reports as a filter option. On and on. You'll see these user-defined fields. Once you define them, they're everywhere, and it's really, really nice to have available. Okay, and then so now let's take a look at our user-defined fields that we just created. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking when I do this live because something could go wrong. So we're going to bring up a customer. We'll bring up our ABS customer, and oh, I'm sorry, before we can see it, we have to add it to the screen. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can add it to the screen. One of the ways is through the customizer selection. And so in the customizer selection, again, it'll show you the recently customized panels, or you can walk into finding what you need. In this case, accounts receivable, and we want to go to customer maintenance, and then it lists all the different combinations of the screens that make up customer maintenance. And there's documentation available. We can help you with which screen you would choose. Sometimes they're a little intuitively obvious. In this case, it's the main tab and the main folder that we want. So what we're going to do then is we're going to edit that panel. There are a number of other options available here for you. Like you can look at user-defined scripts, edit the panel, previewing panels. We're just going to go in and edit it. Now, when you edit the panel, it defaults to your particular user and the one particular company that you're in. The user-defined fields do go across multiple companies, so you have to be careful if you have multiple companies because they're available in all companies. And you can choose to have this available for one user or all users. You can modify it for a different user. I only have the 2 users. Or you may have asked in the user maintenance, when you set up a user, there's a customization code, a 3-character code, and that's also available as a user here in the dropdown. So the classic one is salespeople. Everybody wants to limit what the salespeople can and cannot see. So if you have but there's usually multiple salespeople. So if you have a customization code for salespeople, maybe SAL, you can select that user and customize the screen for those people only. Okay? And so it can be one person, a group of people with the customization code, or all users. And with the companies, it can be one company. You can choose the company and it'll list all of yours, or all companies. I'm just going to modify it for the one company, and it'll list out all the combinations that have been already created, and this actually happens to be one of them. Okay, so now the screen comes up, and the first reaction most people have is, wow, I don't usually see all those fields. In a lot of these screens, there are fields that are available that are used by modules that you may not have turned on, or features that you may not have activated. If you do see fields on there, the best thing to do is just leave them alone. It is possible to move and delete those pre-existing fields, but you really don't want to, because when there's an upgrade, it's just a lot easier if you use any of the blank real estate that's available. If you run out of room, and a lot of people like to add a lot of user-defined fields, it is possible to create an additional tab and have a blank tab that's added where you can add your user-defined fields as well. Now, when you're modifying this, there is a customization panel on the left-hand side, and there's a number of buttons that are available. I'm going to go through those buttons in a moment. First, we're going to start with the Add Field button that's on the right-hand side. So we're going to add the field that we just created, and I'm going to put it right down here. And you can see that it's telling me that I have 8 columns wide. I think I made it 6, so I'll just do 7 for a little bit of extra room. And rows 1, that means it's a height of 1. So we'll open that up, and now it pops up and it defaults to show me those user-defined fields that are created. So we're going to pick our ship account, and we'll put our ship account here. Now there's that message that I had put in, and I could have fixed my user-defined field itself, but I can also just edit it here. So we'll just put the ship account there so we can modify that text. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these other things that we can do with modifying the text in a moment too, because you can modify text other than just the user-defined fields that you've created. Okay, so then we can also adjust the columns. So when I placed this field in, I got real lucky, and that lines up pretty nicely. But if I wanted to move it over, I can adjust the columns or the rows, so I can move it over or up and down. We can also adjust the width. Now that I've edited the text, I probably don't need all 14 characters, so maybe we'll move it down a little bit, and you can see the preview is moving things over for me as well. Okay, and the properties of hidden, it wouldn't be appropriate to hide this, but that is very handy to know that you can hide fields and people don't even know they're on the screens. So for example, if you're trying to modify the salesperson screen and you want to take a field and hide it, you can hide it. They don't know it exists. You can also make a field grayed out so that they can see that it exists but can't edit it. But in this case, it's totally hidden when you click the hide. Okay, so we've modified the ship account, and then another thing that's very handy, if we wanted to edit the field itself, I simply right-clicked on it. It has all the information about the status and the hotkey from the user-defined field, as well as the validation that you can add, and then the options. You can choose whether or not you want this to be a tab stop or not, and we do want this to be a tab stop, so we'll leave that tab stop available. But again here, this is because this is a field and not just text, it has more options than just hide the text. So we can disable it, we can lock it. You can choose a variety of options with your fields themselves, and this does apply not only to the field that we just created, but there are options, for example, in the other fields. So if you don't want zip code to be a tab stop, you can simply take it off tab stop. I'm going to leave it though as a tab stop. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do to customize not only the user-defined fields that you've added, but also the existing user-defined fields. I'm going to move my ship account in a little bit too. Okay, so that's one way that we can modify the screens. The other things that you can do is add external link. And what that means is if there's a link outside the program, you can add it in. So for example, if you wanted to launch Excel from a screen, you could. Or if there's a report within Sage that you want to launch, you can create a button that's an external link and launch that report. So it can be either a menu option within Sage or an option outside of Sage, can be added with a button to the screen too. This button here, the big capital A, is for adding text. So if you want to add additional instructions or fields and they don't come with an actual data field, you can add text to the screens as well. You can put borders around the frames, group the items together. There's of course the undo button, my favorite. And then there's lots of tools that are available. So the panel header definition, again with the tab definitions. Maybe if you don't want to go through it field by field and modify which ones get tabs, you can decide here that the tab sequence, this one's reversed. We have the tab sequence on the left and the available controls on the right. You can choose which tabs you want, and they can be reordered, so which order you want as well. So if you need to modify your tabs, this gives you some functionality there as well. I'm going to cancel out of that. And so then if you're working on a screen and you've added a lot of user-defined fields and a lot of changes, you might want to save it in the middle. Otherwise, or you may want to delete it if things aren't going so well. There's also help available. We can print it out. If you're happy with it and you just want to save and exit everything, we can use the door button to exit out of that. And so we're going to save our customization. Now, this can be kind of intimidating to look for the screen in order to modify it. So sometimes people just prefer the shortcut. And the shortcut would be just modifying it straight from sales order entry. So we're going to start an order and bring up that customer that we'll bring up the ABS customer. And sorry, I forgot to create my order. But if we wanted to modify then the lines tab, we can go to or the header tab even. We could simply do Control F9 and it goes right into that customization to customize from there as well. So if it's a little bit intimidating to go to the other screen, you can do it from here. It used to be that if you did Control F9 directly from the screen, then it would default to this user and this company. But now it does give you the option of modifying screens for other users and other companies when you do the Control F9 option. So it got around the previous issue with that. Okay, so now that we have our user-defined field created, no, I'm not going to save that. We created it in the customer maintenance. We do want to create it on this, put it on the sales order. So, so we'll go ahead and add it to the sales order. And we're in our customized field. Now, we had added the ship account to the customer maintenance, but I had forgotten in my excitement about going through the customizer buttons to add it to the sales order entry. So again, we're going to make sure our rows are 1 and my columns are wide enough. And we're going to pick the ship account. And it put the ship account in there for us. That looks good. I don't need to modify that. But marketing has been, or accounting has been complaining because people have been taking orders and they haven't been collecting the customer purchase order number. Not quite ready to make that a required field, but what we want to do is maybe we want to just draw people's attention to it when they're doing data entry. So I'm going to change the text to be just PO because I'm going to make my PO really, really big. We'll change the font and we'll pick something that's big and ugly and obnoxious, like Arial Black as the font, and you can see it's starting to show it down here in the preview. Maybe we want to make it double size to just make it really obnoxious. We'll make our text color red and our background yellow. And in this ways, you can also just use yellow to highlight things. We're going to make it bold, and it looks like it's only showing half size here, so we need to make that that height not 1 but 2, so it can accommodate that big old PO. Oops, not 225, just 2. Okay, so it gave us a preview of what that's going to look like, and when we say OK, you can see that it highlighted that and made it bold, so that you can't miss that. Now, there are things that we can do with fields, even if you cannot make them required. We can use some scripting in order to hijack the OK button so that it looks and makes sure those fields have been populated if you want to make it required. But that's off on a tangent. So here we've customized our purchase order so that people see it, and we've adjusted our ship account so that we have that available on the sales order. And we've done all of this. We're going to save that customization by simply launching it from entering the sales order. So now that we have our user-defined fields, finally, I can go in and put in some data. Yay! So we're going to bring up a customer. We'll just bring up the ABS customer. And we want to put in the shipping account. We'll just pick all 6. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is our number. So now, if all goes well, and I don't have to run utilities to update the screens. By the way, a small word about utilities. Sometimes, especially when you create user-defined fields, especially when you're creating them for other people, there are customizer utilities to run in order to update the screens. Let's see if this one just updated on its own. So we'll pick that ABS customer, and voila, it did. So my shipping account that I had entered in customer maintenance did flow over here to my sales order entry, just like I had planned it. I shouldn't sound so surprised. The consultants are never surprised when they do this stuff. Okay, and my PO field is really bold, so I'm gonna get that PO and fill it in. Now that I'm done celebrating that, I'm feeling really bold, and we kind of want to make some more customizations. So let's go to the Lines tab. We did not create any lines user-defined fields, but there is some fields in item maintenance that we want to add and show here. The category is really important to us, and you can see it's not showing in my primary grid, and when I look at my secondary grid, I don't have the item category available. But in this case, color is our category, and it's really important. We want to show it. So what we're going to do is we'll do our handy-dandy little shortcut for Control F9, and let's go in and modify this panel for my user and my company, because I'm not bold enough to mess up all my companies. And in this case, we have the same panel available, but this looks kind of different because it's the grid entry. It's a little bit different from the non-grid entry. The shortcut to using it is simply right-click on it, and it brings up the grid definition. If I had user-defined fields, they might be added. We want to add a field, so we're going to click the Add button to our grid, and my user-defined fields would show up right here if I had any, but I don't. But what I'd really like to do is I want to add an existing field that's not a user-defined field, but I want to have it available. So we can click Show All, and then the Show All will show all the fields that are available within these tables, not only the main table that we're working with, but also related tables too. So we're in sales order entry. Once we enter an item, the item code table is a related table. And so here, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our inventory item fields, and these might look familiar to you. My category 1 happens to be my color field that I've added. This is the system user-defined field for inventory items. So we'll select that, and it says category 1 because that's what the field's called, but I want to call it color. And in this way also, if you just want to modify the description, you can on your fields on the grid entry too. So we'll make that color. And so it's added it to the field. Again, we have the ability to hide columns and do other options. We're going to make that a tab stop, maybe not a tab stop. And then we'll say OK. So we'll exit out of this, save our customizations. And so now when I go in to the sales order entry, and let's just see what I'm already in the middle of sales order entry. No, I don't want to save those changes. We'll start all over. So now when I go into sales order entry, we'll create a new order. We'll pick our customer, ABS. The shipping account is still coming through. Yay. We'll put in our PO. And now when we select a line, maybe the 6655 item, we'll order 2 of these, and you can see you can see that color, since I added it to my primary grid, you can add it to the secondary grid also using the customizer selection, or you can just drop it down into the secondary grid too, just like any other field with the grid entry. So you can see that it is also showing color as well. So what I've done is I've created user-defined fields. I've added them. You can add them to the header or the lines. In this case, I was doing it on the header. You can flow it from one area to the other, or you can simply add fields that already exist in Sage if you want to see them in other places as well. So the just checking my notes. And so with that, there's one other thing that I had on the agenda, but we may not have time to quite get through all of it. And that is creating, I'm not going to save changes, creating user-defined tables. So you can use a user-defined table to provide validation for one of your user-defined fields as well. Now, the benefit of a user-defined table is that they're easy to edit because they can be right in the menu of Sage. So under UDT maintenance, here's my user-defined table. And you can add as many columns as you want and define what those columns are, and then as many values as you want. So it's very easy to edit. So in this case, maybe we can add new options, and these can be validation options for a field. So let's kind of very, very quickly take a quick peek at user-defined tables as well. So when we go into the user-defined field in table maintenance, the key here is don't select any tables, any existing tables, and then this button for the user-defined table is available. Once you select a file folder, it grays out and it goes away, so you can no longer create them. Because the user-defined tables themselves aren't added to the table, they can be added via a user-defined field. So we're going to create a table, and this table, maybe we want to call it the customer source, because, well, maybe we'll call it marketing. Marketing has been saying they want to know what's the source for our customers. And so it creates a key field on the user-defined table so that there's one field that is a primary search criteria that would be a unique value, and a key field definition. You can modify these, they just default in there. Maybe our length, we're going to have it as 6. And so then with this, so we've created the key field on our table. That would be a one field table. We can add as many fields as we want. So maybe we want a description of what this code means, because we want a short code that people can type just a couple letters or numbers, but there might be a really lengthy description that goes along with it. So instead of people typing the lengthy description, you can just type the short code. So since I'm going to do a lengthy description, maybe my lengthy description is 30, and I don't need a mask or a caption, and we don't have any validation for that, so that's just fine. And maybe we have something else, and I can't think of a good example for it, but you can add additional fields to make 3 fields. So this is going to be a 2-field table. So if you think of it as a spreadsheet, it's got 2 columns in the spreadsheet. Okay, so we've created our table. And actually, I see that I put it on my accounts payable. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this into vendor maintenance because we want a source for our vendors. So what we'll do then is we'll go to accounts payable vendor maintenance. The vendor master. And now we're going to create a user-defined field for the vendor master. And we're going to use this for the market of what's the market for our, where did we pick up this vendor? My examples get stranger and stranger as the demo goes on, right? Okay, so this is just going to be manual entry. However, in this manual entry, I think we said we wanted a limit of 6. It's also going to be multi-line and string. But what we want to do is we want to use validation. So we're going to use that table that we have available to us, the AP for market. So market is my table that I can add and edit things to. And I also have a field name of market as my user-defined field. So I have both a user-defined field and a user-defined table called market, just to confuse you. Okay, so now we're adding it to the dictionary. Everybody has to be out of the system. So the advantage to using user-defined tables is that you can update the tables and add new values for validation purposes without kicking everybody out when you update these user-defined fields. And it does take a few moments, so you just have to be patient. Now you can see that my market user-defined table is available here. If I wanted to add data to it, I can from right here if I wanted to, because there's usually different places that you can get it. So let's see, for accounts payable side, how did I find people? Maybe, do you remember the yellow pages? Yes, I think I'm dating myself, believe it or not. So we can add values here. I can add as many as I want. Or if you don't want to go into the user-defined field and table maintenance, we can go straight to the UDT maintenance and add it here. Now you can see that it doesn't exist yet on the menu, and that's because I forgot to add it to the menu. So when we go into the user-defined market, what we want to do, if you ever find that you don't have your table available for edit, is just add that UDT to desktop. See that button there? So when we add it, then what it's going to do is it's going to modify and change the desktop so that it is available, and then you can control it via security. So I have to make sure that security is available because I've added it to the desktop so that I can see it. So we're going to go into the security, and you can see I'm admin and I've given myself rights to everything, but this is gray, which means that I don't have rights to everything. And you can see that the gray is coming from custom office instead of being a clean checkbox. So we'll go into custom office and we can see it's the miscellaneous tasks. And here's AP Market, my new user-defined table. It is controlled via security on who can get in there and make changes to it. And it does default as being turned off. So again, you can't see it and you can't use it until you give yourself rights to that, or somebody gives you rights to that. So now we can see under user-defined table maintenance, here is our AP Market user-defined table. And we can go ahead and add the other things in here. Maybe it's a friend that we're buying from, or whatever categories. Let's do whatever, whatever categories you want, you can add in there. And so now these will be validation codes for our user-defined field that we had. So the last thing that we want to do is add it to our accounts payable vendor maintenance. And because I'm lazy and that custom office scares me, I'm going to go right to vendor maintenance, do Control F9 again, I just want to modify my user and my company instead of everybody, but you do have to be aware of what you're modifying here. So we'll say okay. And then there's some additional real estate maybe over here. So what we can do now is add the field. It's kind of sensitive. Here's my user-defined field of market, which has the validation of the user-defined table. And we'll say okay. Exit out of there. And we're going to cross our fingers and hope that everything worked out okay. So now when I create a new vendor or an existing vendor, we'll bring up this vendor, and we can see that we've got this search button. And here is our list of fields that we have, to pick from, whatever. Okay, so luckily everything went right today, but if things don't go right for you, just give us a call. These can be a little bit sensitive, but it is quite wonderful because there's some tools that are very, very easy to get information out of the system. The advanced lookup engine, everyone should be able to modify that. That should be a go-to reporting tool for the most casual users. And the memo codes can become very handy, very invaluable for a number of business purposes. You can see this vendor has a memo code too. It's yellow when there's memos that have been added to it. And then Sage has a lot of fields available within it, but if there's a field that is missing that you need, you can add that field with a user-defined field. You can flow it to the areas that make sense and are important to you, and you can have validation on the field and options to choose from. The screens can be customized, so tab stops can be customized. The text can be added to, bolded, highlighted. We can put scripts in. I did not show you scripts today to make things required, or you can hide things completely for customization groups. And since I have one more minute left, I'm going to show you what I meant with the customization groups. So when we're in role maintenance, not role maintenance, my apologies, user maintenance. So when we're in user maintenance and I bring up my user ID, then you can see the customization group. I have it blank here, but if you wanted to have a group for salespeople, we can create this customization group and add it to all the people who belong in that group. So it's on this user and on the other user. And that way, when I customize screen for the user of SAL, then these customers in that customization group are affected by that. So there's lots of wonderful things you can do to customize your Sage 100 with the tools that are available. And with that, does anybody have any questions that you'd like to share at this time? Alternatively, if you'd like to email us a question, we'll email answers either to just you or to the whole group if you like. I'm not seeing any questions in the queue, and I don't see anybody's hand raised, so my apologies if you're raising your hand. But with that, let me know if you do have any questions, and we will